Can you restore a sign that's been hanging outside for 20 years? You sure can. The history on this thing is I made it, I know it's been over 20 years ago, for Ryan's in-laws, Amy's parents. And Ryan was just over there at their house not too long ago and looked at the sign, and they asked if we could restore this thing and bring it back to life. I can't actually remember the finish that I put on this thing. I think, 20 years ago I was using Varathane, and it held up pretty well. A lot of times what you'll do is you'll find a board and a sign that you've done, and if it's this old and been outside, it's completely cracked wide open, and most of the time it won't be worth saving. But this thing has got some little tiny cracks in it, but I think it's something we can definitely work with. So first things first, we know we're going to have to sand the heck out of this thing, and for the most part it's carved plenty deep enough, except for these little tiny areas within this logo. I'm going to have to recarve those, otherwise if I sand it first I'll lose those marks, so I want to carve those deeper. So as I was working on recarving this fine detail stuff, I noticed that there's quite a few high spots in here. So we're going to be doing some sanding, so I'm going to go ahead and chip those high spots out before we start our sanding process. Okay, so I got the high spots taken care of, and I've got it brushed out really good. The one thing that I really have to keep track of here is this is an old piece of old growth redwood, and it's been sitting outside for 20 years. This thing is super fragile. In fact, it's so dry, it absolutely weighs almost nothing. And it's very, very fragile. Even when I was brushing, I had to be super careful that I didn't brush off one of the letters. So you really got to pay attention and handle these things with care. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to put a chamfer around there, around the edge, redo the edge, so that when we spray it, it comes back to an original look as far as a big chamfer. All right, now we got most of the prep work done. Now it's time to start spraying. But before we do that, this Niners logo is actually going to be red in the background. By the way, both of these logos, there's no copyright issue because this was a gift. I didn't sell this. Be aware of that. Don't be carving stuff that's copywritten in order to sell. Anyway, so now we got to mask this off so we can get our black sprayed. Once we got our black all sprayed, then we'll do the opposite. We'll mask off the black and spray the red, and then we'll get to sanding. Don't forget, you definitely want to use matte or flat finish for the black and for any color that you're going to be spraying. This is matte finish. All right, it's time to sand. Now what I've got to take into account here is, again, this thing is super soft. This is definitely old growth redwood, old growth redwood. So it's super soft, so I really got to be careful and have a light touch with a sander. I'm going to use an 80 grit on my disc sander, but I'm going to take it really nice and slow and really have a soft touch with it. This thing also, the surface of it is kind of almost sandblasted, so I've got to take that down and get it down smooth, again, without sanding out a bunch of our carving. Then after the rough sand is done, I'll go back with a 120 and the random orbital, again, being very careful not to sand too much in any one spot. So this is just a trick that I learned a long time ago. Actually, my dad showed me this. It seemed like way unconventional and very simplistic, but it just gives a better look to the sign. It's not perfect, but it gives a better look to the sign. So if, in this particular instance, I've got a little gouge that I missed that we sprayed red. And we don't want that thing to show up red when we put a finish on it. So we're just going to use this little carving tool and get that red out of there. So what I'm going to do here, basically I'm going to take a spot that would have really stood out and been kind of a focal point. That is the red on the redwood, and I'm just going to scrape it out and then just try to smooth it off. In this case, I'll do it with this little carving deal, but I could have also done it with a piece of sandpaper, fine sandpaper as well. The basic idea is just to kind of have it something that won't attract the eye, that just kind of blends in with the rest of the sign. This is going back outside maybe for another 20 years before it gets worked on again. So we're going to put exterior on there, and we've got the helmsman. You can buy this interior, but this is the exterior version. So we just have about a half a can of this stuff right now because I don't use this very often. So we're going to put one coat on here to give you guys an idea, but we'll end up probably putting 10 or 15 coats on. So here's how it came out. I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. Is it perfect, like brand new? No, but it's a lot better than what it was. The thing about this is it is old growth redwood, and it's pretty resilient to the elements, and I did have a pretty decent finish on it. So again, I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. The one thing about this, it had some sentimental value since it was a gift, so we wanted to try and save it if we could. In some cases, maybe you're better off just starting over, but being as this had sentimental value, I wanted to share it with you, hoping that it would come out, that you guys don't necessarily have to throw signs away. Even if they look terrible, they might be savable. So I hope this is helpful for you guys. If you have any questions, just email me, eric@makeawoodsign.com. Don't forget to check out the website, makeawoodsign.com, for all your sign carving needs. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.